So I have a name for two of them, two of these really deep stories. One of them is the story of the self. The other is the story of the people. All cultures have a story of the self and a story of the people. They answer the questions, who are you? Where did we come from? Where are we going? What's important in life? What's valuable? What's the purpose of life? Different cultures answer these in different ways. The story of the self answers the who are you? What is a human being? And it says, in our civilization, it basically says this. What you are is this separate being among other separate beings in a universe that's separate from you. What you are is this bubble of psychology floating around. It depends. Religion says what you really are is a soul. You're not even the flesh. You're separate from that even. You're separate from matter. You're a soul encased in flesh. Science says, well, it's more like you're a consciousness. Descartes would say that. You are this mote of consciousness inside a robot made of flesh. You are a mind inside flesh. Some science would dispense with the mind altogether and say you are just this robot made of flesh. Physics says you are a collocation of atoms, of elements interacting according to various forces. Economics, of course, says that you are an economic man, an atomic unit that interacts with other atomic units according to various forces. So they all agree on what a person is. But not every culture agreed about that. Some cultures would say that what you are is the totality of all your relationships. And they wouldn't even have a word for self that meant anything like our word for self means. They wouldn't have a word for body either. That was different from person. This myth of the separate self runs very deep. And even though I think most people kind of reject it now, and we're more attracted to the idea that we're, in some sense, we're in unity with each other, that I'm not different from you. Maybe we're even the same being looking out through different eyes, and we're not separate from other species. We're not separate from the world. We still have a lot of habits of thought and intuitions that are based on separation. This corresponds in our economic system to the externalization of costs. It says we can somehow insulate ourselves from what's going on out there because out there is not in here. Out there is not me. So there could be some tragedy. Fukushima, okay? Well, that's not going to affect me because that's over in Japan, and if the wind blows the wrong way, I can go somewhere else. And I can eat food that's imported from somewhere with no radiation. So I can escape that. The Gulf oil spill, well, I get my shrimp from the West Coast. I don't get my shrimp from the Gulf of Mexico, so that doesn't affect me. So our logic says that what happens to you doesn't matter to me. What happens to the world isn't happening to me. That's what our logic says. But our hearts disagree. This logic contradicts our felt experience. So I might as well mention that the new story of the self that we are entering, you could call it the connected self. Even that doesn't quite get at it, because that implies separate beings having connections. Really what it is the self of interbeingness, of interexistence, that understands that what's happening to the Gulf of Mexico, what's happening to children in Haiti, what's happening to child soldiers in Africa, what's happening to people living in ghettos, and what's happening to the whales, and what's happening to the forest, that's happening to me too. That's something we can feel. That's why it hurts when you see that photo of the seabird drenched in oil staggering along the shore, or when you read about children in Haiti eating dirt because they're hungry, or when I was driving from Ashland and there's those clear cuts, you can see them from the road. Like, that's painful. Why should that hurt? The logic of separation says that there's no reason for that to hurt. But as we enter this new story of self, which you could call the connected self, then it makes sense now. It makes sense why those things should hurt me, because they are happening to me.